The 2024 presidential election is shaping up to be one of the most intense and divisive our country has faced.
This is all election hunting, election interfering. It's going after Joe Biden's political opponent because he can't do it himself. There is no crime.
Former President Donald Trump is one day closer to finding out if he will be the first convicted felon with a chance at the Oval Office, while President Biden is facing down Democrats and progressives fighting to rally his voter base as polls continue to show Americans are ditching the president over his support of Israel and his handling of the economy. But both candidates are unleashing attacks on one another, hoping that with strong enough language, they can get their number one point across. Vote for me.
Why isn't Joe Biden here speaking to you tonight? You know why? Why isn't he? Because he can't put two sentences together. That's why he's not here.
Donald Trump still thinks windmills cause cancer. That's what he said. By the way, remember when he was trying to deal with COVID, he said, just inject a little bleach in your veins. He missed it, all went to his hair.
Well, it's not only the presidency that's up for grabs. Both houses of Congress are on the brink of flipping. With open seats and political infighting, it's unclear who will win control in November. Here to go on the record is Scott Tranter, Director of Data Science for Decision Desk HQ. Scott, so good to see you as always. It's been a game of tag between Trump and Biden in the polls. Earlier this month, Biden edged out Trump, but Decision Desk HQ shows Trump has taken a leap ahead of Biden, now leading him by 1%. Is Trump's trial, the hush money trial that's been taking place in New York City, having an effect on voters?
Look, at best, it's having no effect if you're the Biden campaign, because obviously he's rising and it's all over the news. But most likely because it's all over the news, because he's on camera, he's talking about it. It's even when he's not talking about it, the news coverage is there. It looks like it's having no negative effect on him. In fact, we've seen even poll numbers rise among non-likely voters, which, again, we don't necessarily track those folks a lot, but we're looking towards a high turnout race this fall, and those voters are trending towards Trump, and so that's something we're going to be watching, especially as this trial unfolds, and that's a big dynamic.
So President Trump is still rallying around this idea of not accepting the election results, painting a picture of fraud and corruption. He's swayed GOP lawmakers, or many of them, to his side, with many unwilling to say that they will accept the outcome in November. Scott, will Trump supporters rally around that sentiment at the ballot box in November?
Look, he's certainly using it as a rallying cry. Look, in 2020, there's no significant or any irregularities that were going to overturn the result. I don't expect that to be the case this cycle as well. But it's very motivating for his base. There's a core of the Republican electorate, 10-20% of them, that believe this is a problem, believe that what he says on this matter, and it's certainly a rallying cry for his campaign.
Yeah, and Republicans using the language election integrity, to make that case. So we'll watch that language and watch for any development. So, Scott, last weekend here in D.C., both Donald Trump and RFK Jr. made their pitches to the Libertarian Party convention. Trump was booed while RFK received a slightly warmer welcome. The party ultimately nominated Chase Oliver, but does this throw a wrench in RFK's plans? I mean, I think he was hoping to have more sway with the Libertarians.
Yeah, I think he was too. I would imagine they kind of knew, both Trump and the RFK campaign knew a little bit what they were walking into in terms of a libertarian convention. This is something that not a lot of people watch, but it's something I watch as well. I wasn't expecting either of them to come out, unscathed. RFK wasn't, for the insiders, wasn't expected to win. I know he was talking about it. It certainly helped with ballot access and things like that. But largely, the Libertarian Party doesn't look at these two candidates as true, purebred libertarians.
So RFK Jr. is still very much looking to collect signatures to get on the ballot in as many states as possible. But he's been talking quite a bit about getting on the debate stage in Atlanta in the end of June at the CNN debate. How likely will it be that RFK makes it onto that debate stage and the other debate in September?
Well, it looks like, and again, these getting on the CNN debate, it's rather arbitrary. CNN could wake up tomorrow and change their debate rules. It's not like they're in some sort of commission or there's some sort of law about that. And the RFK campaign's pointing that out. Based on CNN's own rules, it appears that he's probably going to make it on the polling side, and he's certainly going to make the argument that he has enough signatures to reach the electoral threshold. The problem is he may claim he has enough signatures, but a lot of these states don't have to announce whether he made the ballot until later this summer after the debate. So there's going to be some back and forth, and there's going to be some claiming of, hey, he made the threshold, and CNN's probably going to say he didn't. We'll see how it plays out, but he's certainly got a case, at least on the polling side.
Yeah, and you make a good point. There's no commission on presidential debates here. So we're in a scenario between the networks and the campaigns. So we'll be watching that. Moving to the Senate and just up the road in Maryland, here from Washington, D.C., Larry Hogan, the former governor of that state, is out with a new ad touting his abortion rights stance. Now, this isn't something we hear from a lot of former Republican governors or Republicans in general. So, Scott, where does this leave Democrats like his opponent, Angela Brooks, who are looking to attack him?
Look, he's coming out strong. He was, when he was governor of Maryland, he was, as he likes to say, states' rights. This is what the people want when it comes to abortion rights and things like that, which still isn't great. He didn't have the best ratings from Planned Parenthood and some of the more fervent abortion rights groups, but he's coming out strong, going against one of his weaknesses and seeing if he can't get a little bit of messaging share early before Brooks has a chance to raise some money and really hammer him on the issue, as I expect she will.
Yeah, and we've actually already seen her make that attack against Hogan. So I'm curious to see what her response is to this ad. Scott, very exciting news from the Decision Desk HQ, Nexstar, the Hill world today. Decision Desk is rolling out a new forecasting tool this week. What can we expect to see?
Well, thanks. Yeah, we launched it this morning. It's a forecast model. We are forecasting and doing analysis on all the states for the presidential, all of the Senate races, all the House races. So there's a prediction and analysis for each and every one. If you go over to thehill.com election center, you'll be able to see it. I think the headline today is, as of today, it's a slight favorite for Donald Trump to win the presidency. It's a pretty heavy favorite for the Republicans to win the Senate and a slight favorite for the Republicans to win the House. If we look at the presidential side, Donald Trump, at least in the model, is ahead in places like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, a little bit behind in places like Michigan, and fighting it out in Nevada and Arizona. This is taking into account all about 200 different variables. We look at FEC data, we look at polling, we look at fundamentals, voter registration, past trends, and we put it in there into a whole simulation and simulate it out. And it is very close to the presidential. I expect this to swing back and forth as we get more polling and more data. But right now, Donald Trump's the favorite, and the GOP is the favorite to take out the Senate and the House.
So, Scott, I want to get into, I guess, the nuts and bolts of how the forecasting tool works. How is it different from other models and from what other models are showing?
Yeah, so look, our model, we've been doing this since 2018. We have our code and our methodology peer reviewed by the Harvard Data Science Review. We put a lot of it out there. If you want to go to sleep tonight, definitely read the methodology page. You can tinker with it. But by and large, we stand by our methodology and the data inputs we put in there. It moves quite a bit based on FEC and polling data, which those are constantly updated, but it is also grounded in fundamentals. We look at voter registration at the district or the race level. We look at income. We look at ethnicity, gender, past voting patterns, new registrations. All these different demographic variables make up and determine what some of these outputs are. The other thing that we're pretty integrated is this polling average we've done with the Hill since for this past cycle. That has been finely tuned. We collect all the polls. We're not picky about it. We put every poll in there, whether we think it leans Republican or Democrat. Again, we want to look at the whole field and balance it out. But by and large, the way our model works is we want to take all the data out there and filter it through and make sure we get a good prediction. How it differs from others, there's some other famous ones out there from 538 and some school ones. Again, I think ours is pretty good in the sense that it's been academically peer reviewed. My guess is we're probably going to be a little bit more responsive. Our model is going to be more responsive to things like polling, just because that is more our style. We want to make sure we incorporate that in there. But I expect other models out there to be relatively in line, although I could see where some other models might have Biden leading. Will be interesting to see what that entails, because you could certainly make that argument depending on how you structure your model. But by and large, ours is based on the polling, based on some of these demographic pieces, and it's our fifth cycle doing it, so we're pretty good at cooking it out.
Scott Tranter, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.